It's one of the fiercest rivalries in football. We get to the heart of how it all began for Manchester's two big guns, City and United. He's the Bournemouth winger building a success story on the south coast. Matt Ritchie on life as a cherry on the top. And the Chilean looking to reinvigorate Arsenal's championship charge. Alexis Sanchez tells us why his side still has what it takes.
I'm John Reeves, I'm an author. One of the first books I published was charting the battle and rivalry between Manchester United and Manchester City. And we're here today looking at the foundations of both clubs and the history of the areas that they first formed in Manchester. So we're in the West Gorton area of Manchester. This particular area is Clough Street, and this is where the sort of area where Manchester City were first formed as a club back in 1880. They weren't called Manchester City back then, they were known as St Mark's West Gorton. And that goes back to a church that was in this sort of area but has now been demolished. Ran by the Connell family, and they set up a football club to sort of something to do for local young people. Or there was a lot of crime in the area at the time, and it was a way of focusing young people to get into something different. If we look around now, the area's changed quite rapidly. I mean, the Clough Street itself has slightly been rerouted, and there's lots of development going on, new properties. The site of the former Aces pub, there was a plaque dedicated to the origination of Manchester City. That's long since gone, but you can see the area is regenerated and very different to what it was back then.
I'm Nigel Rothband. I'm a born and bred Mancunian. I'm a passionate Manchester City supporter. I've been supporting them all my life. And I'm off to meet Jonathan. Not met Jonathan before. He's a Red, and don't know many Reds. Don't talk to many Reds normally, but today's my opportunity to talk about the two sides of Manchester and the rivalry.
Jonathan Schrager, freelance journalist. I'm a third generation Mancunian, born and red, as they say. We're here today to meet a Mancunian Blue. Well, I say Mancunian Blue, he's actually a Cockney Blue. I believe he lives in London, so that was quite amusing to me. But now it should be fun. Seems like a nice fella, Nigel. We'll exchange a few stories, I'm sure. He'll probably try and convince me that City are now the dominant force in Manchester, but I think we all know that they're just that other team in the vicinity that like to make a din. How are we doing? Nice to meet you.
Really good to see you, Jonathan.
Nice to see you.
I think the first derby in the Premier League, I think it was March '93 at Main Road. We actually managed to draw that particular game.
Holden delivers the cross, and Quinn! Niall Quinn gives Manchester City the lead. Cantona making ground in the middle, and he finds him! A magnificent equaliser by Manchester United!
My first vivid memory would be later that year, following season, but same year at Main Road. So of course United are trailing 2-0 at half-time. Niall Quinn scored a brace. And it looked pretty bleak for United, to be honest. Curly Watts as well, he was obviously City's big prominent celebrity fan, was stood right behind me, and he must have twigged at some point that I was a United fan, because my dad and I obviously weren't jumping with joy Quinn's goals. He was kind of, shall we say, rubbing it in a little when he realised that we're Reds. And of course, when it went to 2-2, I turned around and gave him the thumbs up, and then a bit more assertive when the third goal went in, and he actually turned around and stormed out the stadium. So it was quite a proud moment for me as a 10-year-old that I made Curly Watts leave the stadium.
As the teams stride out for the biggest game of the Barclays Premier League season so far.
It's not difficult to try and think about my favourite derby, and it's in recent times, not surprisingly. The 2011-12 season, the season we won the Premier League, at Old Trafford, 6-1. You know, Balotelli 2, Dzeko to Silva and Aguero, and we just completely dominated that game. It was, to be a City fan at Old Trafford, we were back.
Very rarely do you ever see a United team capitulate to the point where they allow it to become embarrassing. That day it was embarrassing for everyone concerned with the club.
That glorious day. We hadn't lost at home that season, and we go behind against QPR, who potentially were going to be relegated.
Yeah.
And we get a goal back. I didn't even celebrate Dzeko's goal actually, because I thought because that wasn't enough. A draw wouldn't have been enough because you just won at Sunderland.
Yeah.
The Stretford fans, at Sunderland, texting each other saying that's it. And I think Fergie's face when you realise that we've got a winner, and that Aguero goal, which was just magical. I sobbed buckets.
Let's put it this way, I'd have rather City pick us to the title than say Liverpool, because I don't know really. Having never really been in and around Liverpool, I don't know anyone. I don't cherish anyone from Liverpool.
Sorry to interrupt you, I cannot believe you're saying that, because I want Stretford to lose every single game they play.
Yeah.
I would never want Stretford to win anything, ever.
I don't harbour that bitterness to City, because for so long they were a non-entity to me, with the greatest of respect in terms of a footballing rival. Yeah. They just weren't. I mean, at the end of the day, the way I saw it is I wanted them to enjoy it, but then I received a text from another Blue friend of mine immediately upon full time, and I realised just how deeply ingrained this bitterness is from the other side of the equation. For me, it's not quite there, as deep-rooted.
So now we're 5 minutes from Close Street. We're on Hyde Road, corner of Bennett Road and Hyde Road. Hyde Road is the first stadium where Manchester City, known as Manchester City, played competitive matches. They moved here in 1887 and played here between 1887 and 1923. And this is where the first sort of guises of Manchester City were known as a competitive side. We're in Bank Street in the east of Manchester, and we're right in the heartland of Manchester City territory in Eastlands. Here there's a plaque over my shoulder that's dedicated to the birth of Manchester United, Newton Heath as they were back then. As we say, it's right in Manchester City heartland, right in Manchester City territory.
You completely dominated, with Ferguson in charge, and during the 90s, I think we got one draw and you won every single encounter during that period, which is pretty painful as a City fan to sort of have to sit through that pain.
Yeah, no, I can imagine.
We carry the scars today.
Obviously, we've always referred to you as bitter blues, and I still believe that bitterness is kind of deeply ingrained in you.
It clearly comes from that 20 years of domination. And it's about jealousy, and it's about that lack of success. And I think it was actually Ferguson himself who talked about actually Liverpool being the rivals that Stretford now have, and not City. And it was him, and that for me was one of the biggest insults that he could actually give us.
But now, of course, with United, and what makes it such a spicy recipe now is the fact that you're coupling the locality of the clubs with the fact that they are now going to be vying for silverware, and that's what makes it such an intriguing rivalry now.
Now we're at the Newton Heath train maintenance depot. Manchester United, or Newton Heath as they were formed by a group of railway workers for the Newton Heath, Lancashire, Yorkshire Railway Company. 1878 they formed the club, and that's when the great history of Manchester United started. Newton Heath, as a railway organisation, were able to attract players from all over Britain at the time by offering them good jobs. So they had an advantage over other clubs in the area. So there was always that sort of appeal to bring players from other areas into the club, and obviously that exists nowadays with Manchester United.
I suppose the one question I would ask you is, deep down, do you believe there's any romance to the way City are acquiring success?
Times have changed, Jonathan. You know that. It's different. The money that's coming into football now, through the Premier League, etc. It's the players' wages that they're on, the fact that stadium are fuller than they've ever been before. That it's changing. And I think, you know, as a City fan, you change your car, you change your wife, you don't change your football team.
Yeah.
And I think the romance, of course, it's there. And we're not the first team. Blackburn Rovers, when they won the Premier League. Stretford haven't exactly, you know, gone for free transfers either, have they exactly? You know, money has been put into all of these clubs. They're genuinely investing in the long-term future of the club. And I think that's the difference. It's not a kind of here today, gone tomorrow, few million quid just thrown in. I think there's a genuine desire to invest in the club, invest in the brand. If you think of kind of the comparisons of where we are now and where you were, you know, we were a laughing stock with a number of managers that we went through during that period. But you've got a situation where potentially you've got 5 managers within 2 years. You had Ferguson. He then, hear me out here, so you had Ferguson. He then said the greatest manager on the planet is a fella called Moyes.
Your job now is to stand by our new manager.
And I'm really gobsmacked that Ferguson hasn't had the sort of criticism I think he should have for appointing him, because he was a complete failure and not up to the job. You then tried Giggs, then you've got this Van Gaal. Is that not a concern for you?
I mean, Giggs was always a stopgap. We knew that in between.
We've had plenty of stopgaps.
It's actually been 3 in 2.5 years, if you're counting an interim manager as Giggs.
I am.
Fergie's not blameless. We all know there's elements to that story that unfortunately render Fergie accountable in certain ways. I think most United fans, certainly ones that aren't blinkered, are aware of that. Of course, that'll always be overshadowed by the unprecedented amount of success that he brought to the club, and Fergie will always be an absolute icon in all United fans' eyes, and that will forever mask any indiscretions that he's had.
So we're here at the North Manchester Business Park. Looks very different now to what it would have done years ago when Manchester United, or as they were known back then, Newton Heath. This is where they first played their games. North Road was the name of the ground. This road's now called Northampton Road. But yeah, the first ground that Manchester United or Newton Heath ever played at was North Road, and that's just behind me here.
I think it's fair to say I don't think we're equals now. I think there's no question in my mind that we have overtaken you, and I think we are now dominating football in the Northwest, football in Europe, football in the world, Jonathan.
Well, I think that's a premature statement based on the fact, of course, you've got to win a European Cup for that statement to be true at this stage. I still think it's very hard to say we're equals. I understand the points you're making insofar as if you're looking towards the future, the infrastructure of the club. I think you're now in a precarious position in the league insofar as I still think you've got a very good chance, but purely based on the lack of experience that Leicester have. I think maybe when squeaky bum time kicks in around the end of March, that's when City might mount a resurgence and overtake them.
But there is no question, I think you listen to any of the commentators, we now say that you're absolutely right, that City now, over the next few years, are well placed to really start to dominate.
For sure, I think there's that question, but don't discount a United resurgence. As I say, we're a massive institution globally, and I believe we'll be back.
I hope you're wrong.
On the 19th and 20th of March, the Premier League Roadshow will ride into Cape Town, South Africa. Football fans will be able to enjoy the thrill of the English top flight on their own doorstep. BPL Live was staged in Mumbai, India last year, having started in Johannesburg in 2014. As well as an opportunity to see the Premier League trophy, fans can also meet former players, test their footballing skills, and watch a series of top-flight matches, including the Manchester Derby. The Mumbai event attracted no fewer than 30,000 fans, all of them relishing a cross-cultural football extravaganza.
I've never really been to Anfield, and I've been supporting Liverpool for a better part of 10 years, and I believe this is the closest experience I can get to actually having a Kop around. And more than anything else, I believe, the entire Premier League atmosphere, you just feel closer to the league now.
We are lucky to have, living in Mumbai, we are lucky to come here to see all these legends and this Premier League trophy and everything.
It's once in a lifetime opportunity. We get to, interact with the clubs which we have been supporting a long time.
This year, Peter Schmeichel and Robbie Fowler will be among the legends. Anyone interested in attending should register at bpllive.com or visit premierleague.com. Entry will be granted on a first-come, first-served basis, and all fans must register before entering. Premier League World will be at the event, and you can see how it all unfolded later on in the month.
Arsenal have had a rocky ride of late, but Alexis Sanchez believes the Gunners still have plenty in their title-challenging armoury. That's still to come.